Good morning, good evening, good afternoon, wherever you are in the world, you are listening to the most famous PPC podcast in the whole entire universe throughout the whole time that's ever existed. The PPC Unfiltered podcast with the great Corey Lindholm and the even greater Michael Nadalin. No, the humble Michael Nadalin and the wizard of Google Ads and data analysis, Corey Lindholm. Corey, mate, how amazing is your life going at the moment?
It
I'm not
is.
even going to
It
ask
is
you how.
amazing.
I'm not even going to ask you how is life going. I'm just presupposing that it's amazing.
It is amazing. I am traveling as always. So, new background for you guys. I swear they're not fake. It is a new background on almost every episode. And yeah, life is good, man. How's things for you?
Yeah, it's amazing. It's been actually probably the greatest 2 weeks in my business life for two reasons. Number one, fired bad clients. Number two, onboarding the best type of clients ever. So getting the upside and cutting down the bad side. So
Love
basically
it.
an investment winning. So feeling good, feeling good. And I get to chat to you every Thursday morning. I get the amazing experience to kind of just rant with you, talk about this stuff, ungaslight myself from all the projections from the world. So it's wonderful, mate. It
I
feels
love
great.
it. Good. Well, we've got some exciting news to start off the show with. Right? I cannot
Yeah.
wait to talk about this because for me, this is something I've been waiting for a long time. So, we ready to get into it?
Yes, mate. And do you want
Let's
me to
go.
bring it up?
Yeah, sure. If you want to, yeah, I think that's always easier. People could see it
Is
on
it
the screen.
is it on LinkedIn or is it on Twitter?
LinkedIn. Yep, it's probably on Twitter too, but
Cool.
LinkedIn is where I
Okay.
saw
Look at us. This is live and unfiltered. Just remember this, guys. Like I'm doing this on the fly.
it.
Okay.
All right,
Here
so
we
we're going to pull
go.
up Jenny Marvin's post, and Jenny wrote something 10 hours ago as of today, and this is being filmed in September. Whole bunch of announcements from D Mexico today. D Mexico. What is D Mexico? Am I just out of the loop? Do you know what that is? D Mexico?
No, I have no idea. I saw that and then I thought it must have been a different post. So
I don't know.
regardless, let's get this. Let's get this
Can't keep
up.
up with
Look.
all the conferences. There we go. Okay, that's the one. All right, guys, there's a bunch of little updates here, but I'd say the most important one is the very first one, and that's probably why she put it first, because it's probably, in my opinion, the most asked about, talked about feature that Performance Max has been missing. Up until now, we've had to use, well, it's still going to be going into the immediate future. We've been limited to negative keywords for PMAX campaigns, Performance Max campaigns, using account level negatives, whether that's through a Google rep, through your own account, whatever, or brand exclusions. But now, huge announcement, a new beta for self-serve campaign level negative keywords will start rolling out by the end of this year. Stay tuned for details. So that's all we know, guys. That's really the news, but I figured Michael and I can talk about how big this is, why is it a big thing, and how we might be using it in our account. So Michael, is this not exciting or what?
Mate, this is amazing. This is what we've wanted for the last 2 years because
Yep.
my biggest theory, my ultimate just like after doing this for 10 years, success from Google Ads doesn't come from doing the right things. It comes from not doing the wrong things. And the wrong things are wrong type of keywords, wrong type of settings, which PMAX, and then wrong type of targeting, which is part of settings. Wrong type of searches, that comes from PMAX.
Hmm.
So that's why a lot of people fail with PMAX. And then number two is the settings, which we're starting to get more and more insights on and also more clarity on. So I think this is amazing. Now, Corey, you just said something then that I just need to confirm, and I might look like a damn fool by asking this. Actually, I don't. Is I get negative keywords added on PMAX campaigns at the moment, but you said it only applies on an account level.
Unless you go through a rep and then they could add it to
Oh,
the
okay.
individual campaign level. Yeah. I
Thank
think
you.
for most
Thank you.
people, they're just so like, here's my giant list, please apply it to my
Okay.
account. But I don't know if
Yep.
everybody's applying it to campaign. I don't
Yeah.
want to assume
Okay.
that.
I
Yeah.
get reps to do it, obviously, because that's the only way. I just thought for a second that when you said that, I'm like, have these been applying to the whole account level? And I'm just visualizing like all these clients who their brand campaigns on search are not running because of that. I'm like, that's why I'll ask the stupid question to get the simple answer. So
No, I'm glad you
uh,
clarified. Good.
this is really, I'm excited for this because this does change the game because we want to be a self-served advertising channel. At the end of the day, you still want Google Ads to be self-serving. The fact that you needed support with this, like I've used other ad channels like, what were they? I think Spotify and some other channels where you needed them to do it all for you. And it just seems really inconvenient. And also just really just like you just don't have that self trust that it's being done absolutely properly. So when you know something self serve, yes, more people are going to make mistakes, but I ain't. So I'm really excited for this. I'm really excited for this because this is going to give us at Market Lead like way more confidence just to like go like full aggressive with Performance Max.
Yep. Yeah, I'm one of my biggest questions is why did it take this long to give us this control? And it's not even ready yet. This is just an
I know.
announcement of a beta. Like, what is it about it that they could? So if they could have done it through a rep, why couldn't they have given us the ability to do that? Was it a matter of let's see if we can pull this off and get most advertisers to Performance Max without them having that level of
Yeah.
control and potentially messing up the results of this new thing? Or was it a matter of this new thing PMAX can't handle a lot of campaign level negatives and still do a decent job? I don't know
Yeah.
what it is. I mean, I guess I would have to lean to the latter because why wouldn't why would they announce it and it's still not ready? They're obviously still working through some kinks in this,
Yeah.
right? It's pretty
The,
strange.
it's either that they just done it for a reason, as in like they couldn't do the technical implementation. Like it is that whilst it's in Google Ads, it could be just completely different product, like a whole different team, even though it's in Google Ads and functionally it didn't work. On the other side of conspiracy, they might go, let's see how many like how much junk traffic we can just accumulate through that time, get more traffic coming through, just and also they may have just done the whole thing where like this is just like a huge like guinea pig test on them. They're just like, let's just see what it's like when people have no control over anything and see what the results are like. And
Yeah,
then
exactly.
if it's not good and people are not happy, then we pull back.
Yep.
But it didn't seem like they kind of go one step more to automation. It's like, here's the whole thing in one go, and you can't strip back.
Yep.
Even remember early days with the that you made it famous, and that's like, and then I started talking about it a lot. Is the feed only asset groups? I call it feed only. Still, people call it other things, but that was kind of like breaking what the structure was,
Yeah. Yeah.
and they
Yeah.
didn't want you to do that, but it
No,
was
because
able to.
we
And I
were
was like,
trying to retain smart shopping. We were trying to do our best to just keep it on
yes,
shopping. Yep.
and I still do that, by the way, with most clients.
Oh yeah.
The But that was like against like their not their documentation, but it was really against what they wanted it to use for. And then because that was like a loophole, they tried to like close up that loophole, but still it's there. And I don't
Yeah,
know
like
if they
they
just
added
had to
YouTube
give it.
Shorts. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Mate. So anyway, that's my little opinion on it.
Yeah. Well, I'm mostly excited because I think this will get some advertisers to try Performance Max if they've been hesitant before. Maybe they didn't know about using a Google Rep for this, or they just didn't want to go through the trouble of going through a Google Rep for this, or maybe they just didn't. I've heard this too. They just didn't trust that the Google Rep would follow exactly what they were telling them. Like, hey, I want you to apply it to just these campaigns. They were worried about that, right? So I think this is going to hopefully get some advertisers to at least try Performance Max for certain products or for certain services and give it a good test. Again, I'm all for doing standard shopping as well as PMAX or one or the other or both. Again, there's no right or wrong here. There's no generic best practices. You have to test and see what works best for your products, for your services, whatever. But I think this is a good opportunity to try some of the good old optimizations that we've done in the past with standard
Mm,
shopping, right? So we're talking query filtering at the campaign level. So maybe we could start having where you have maybe, let's say, keep it simple. We got 3 products. Let's say all 3 of those products are in the same campaign. Well, historically, if you weren't doing the campaign level negatives through a Google Rep, you'd put it all in one campaign and you just apply account level negatives. Okay, not a big deal. But what if you wanted to start expanding the types of queries or searches that you're showing your ads for? Well, how would you do that? You'd have to either just take off the account level negative, or you would have to you'd separate at the campaign level and get with a Google Rep to apply the negatives so that only certain types of intent are funneling through one PMAX versus another. Now you
yeah.
can just do this yourself, right? You can drive the car however you want. You can have your query filtered where one Performance Max campaign for products A, B, and C are your high intent. You're willing to bid really aggressively, put a ton of budget into that. And then you've got your second campaign where it's sort of like mid funnel, not the full commercial intent, but it's almost there. You put a certain amount of budget and a little less aggressive bidding. And then the other Performance Max campaign, same products in all three, but you're just controlling your bidding and controlling your budget by intent. This will give those controls more easily to the advertisers, which I'm really excited about that.
Mm. Right, it's exciting. You mentioned about the reps just before, like getting support from them. That's the thing. If anyone's seen, if you do it yourself, the spreadsheet they send you, it looks so weird and dodgy. It looks weird, and it's just like super confusing. And also, like if you're like me, I'm very fast paced. Like I want things done now. Like I want to just quickly apply something, move on, let's get it done. And it just feels like such like a you're running at high speed, like we're doing stuff, and there's like smacking you against a wall. And it's like, do this process, like, bro, like,
Yeah,
here's my campaign ID, here's my list that I want you to add to it. It's like, oh, but we need your approval. I'm like, bro,
yeah,
here's my approval. I'm telling you to
yeah.
do it. So
Telling you to do it. Yeah,
yeah, it's really annoying. But this is good
really.
news. This is good news.
Yes, good
Now,
news.
any of the other things that you found super interesting? More PMAX
Uh,
insights?
Yeah, I mean, I like getting the impression share data for the shopping ads on search. As you can see, that there are new impression share reporting for text and shopping ads on search. So we'll get some search impression share metrics inside of those Performance Max campaigns. So I'm excited about that. I don't know if it's going to hit the API first or after, but hopefully that comes in an API update so we
Mm.
can pull that stuff programmatically. New asset coverage reporting, recommendations underperforming. That was another one. I think was where is it here? I mean, Google is really on this bandwagon of the AI generated sort of assets and everything. And obviously, my conspiracy on that is they want to get more advertisers to try demand gen and those kind of outbound display heavy
Yeah.
type of advertisements because, obviously, they want a lot of data. Google's a data company. They want more data points on figuring out ways to make it better, which I don't blame them. They also, if you want to go the negative pessimistic route, they also just want to make profits off of those other ad networks that they're having trouble getting advertisers to spend money on. So utilizing these AI based asset generation tools allows maybe the opportunity for more advertisers to start utilizing those channels. I assume that's one of the reasons they're pushing that so heavily, but also the technology has improved to allow advertisers to use this, and it is a good tool. I think it's a helpful tool, and I'm glad that we have it.
The technology has improved, Corey, but have the results? That's the
Exactly.
question.
That
That's
is
the
the question.
question. I'm
Yep.
still extremely like not impressed by the display network and the ability for it to. It has so much potential power that it feels like it's. I don't know. It just feels like someone who's born with talent and just never really just like does the work.
I think if, in case people haven't watched that previous episode where we dropped that knowledge bomb of just theorizing around why is Facebook's algorithm for advertising seemingly better performing in certain ways in sense of outbound and cold traffic versus Google Display Network and YouTube. And we kind of talked about it and said, maybe it's the difference between Facebook picks up signals using unconscious signals from the user, right? So it's picking up these sort of unconscious behaviors. Someone that's mindlessly scrolling, they're interacting with things. It's a different part of their brain that's it's interacting with content. Whereas in Google, it's this intentional, logical part
Yeah.
of the brain. It's more conscious, and Google is getting that algorithm is learning with different signals in a sense about its users. So go back and watch that episode. I can't remember exactly which one it was, but just watch all of them, and
Yeah.
you'll find that piece of content.
I forgot about that until you just spoke about that. I'm like, that is some damn good knowledge, Corey. Like that around like Facebook and social media, people are going that in an unconscious state. So then whatever they take actions on are unconscious biases playing out, which the algorithms pick up versus Google and big Google search, people are proactively looking, or YouTube, the most of the time they're proactively watching rather than just numbing out like doom scrolling. So
Exactly.
and even when people do see GDN ads or Google Display Network ads or these things, or Gmail ads, they're in their email. They know what they're doing there, or they're like on a website, like a news site. Like they're there with some sort of purpose. They're probably not
Mm,
going into some sort of unconscious bias mode. So,
yep.
mate, what a good start to this episode. So let's jump to
Yes.
the next section, mate.
All right, let's do it. All right, do you want to go into your hot tip? I'm excited about this one.
Yeah. Okay.
Okay.
So my hot tip, and let me just bring up my notes for this. I'm not going to show people. Is okay. So hot tip. And this is huge. I've spoken about in the mastermind I'm in, and I've taught this, ingrained this with my team as well. So in most areas of life, simplicity is where success comes from. If you want to be healthy, it's really two things: exercise and eat well. So exercise properly and eat well. With advertising, I realize there's only like three phases for success in advertising. Number one, actually, I'm going to keep talking about that before I tell you guys this, is after 10 years of doing this, I constantly like review the processes and I'm like, what makes the difference? Because it's not just what you do in the account, it's how you communicate to the client. And I see so many people wasting dozens of hours on something that like I can look at and be like, hey, why don't you just do that? And they're like, oh, and it's like, what's stopping people from seeing the things that need to be done? So what I do is this is three phase. Number one is like the basic fundamental level, which is the account or the campaign build slash setup. And that's when there's a lot of information online, like the checklist, the process, our way of doing it. Everyone's like the ultimate optimization checklist or the ultimate thing you need to do to build out the best PMAX campaign. So that's level one. That's like setting it up appropriately. It's just setting it up so you can actually get good data. Number two, which for us, Corey, this seems common sense, but it's just not common action because it's really about the simplicity is not about simplicity of knowing, it's the simplicity of doing. And number two is data analysis and insight. So basically, just looking at you've set up the account and just going, what happened? Like, why do we think it happened? And then just measuring it against internal, being at the company, or external industry benchmarks. So you go, what happened? Why do we think it happened? How's it going against benchmarks? And this data could be, there's so many data points. It could be your CTRs, your cost per clicks, your conversion rates, your impression shares. It could just be your search terms, like what percentage of them were relevant. And people are usually pretty bad or lazy at this. And what we were speaking about in the past as well is doing something like a gap analysis. So going through the whole account and the main metrics and going, how are we going against benchmarks, good or bad? But data analysis is so important to analyze the data. Then the next step is to give insights about it. Why do we think it happened? It's not just like conversion rate went from 2% to 10%. That's data analysis. What's the insight? Why did that happen? What caused that? Then the step three, which is two parts to it, it's called aligned recommendation and execution. Now, before I'll go into that, is most of the time people go, hey, I've built out the account this way. And then they just go, what's the ultimate list to optimize an account? And they're trying to bypass step two, which is the data analysis and insight. And once again, people are trying to do the recommendations or the execution without actually using data. They're just like, oh, what does Michael and Corey say to optimize a PMAX campaign? We don't know your data, so we can't give you just like recommendations. Like it's
Wait.
like,
Michael, T row is it target ROAS or target CPA? Do I use max conversions with no? What do I do?
I know, even as like, look, I still get caught into some of that ideas when I set online, but the reality is that's why I say I call it aligned recommendation. It can't just be recommendation. It needs to be aligned with step two, which is the data analysis and insight. So basically, with that aligned recommendation execution is what do we do with the insights? Not what do we do? What do we do with the insights? We've got to make sure that it's aligned with step two. And then the next part of it is what do we do with the data from the differences in the benchmark? So if it's under benchmark, what are we going to do there? If it's over benchmark, how do we capitalize on it more or apply that to other areas? So this is what I was wanting to chat about a few weeks ago because we've been working on this framework I've been working on this framework for 10 years because this is what it is. Like advertising is setting it up in the best way possible. Number two is data analysis and insight level. Like next step is aligned recommendations execution. You can bring down hundreds of hours of work down to like 30 minutes by just doing this, setting up properly. Hey, what's the data doing against our benchmarks? Cool. What do we recommend based on that data? Rather than just going, hey, what do we do next? It's like, what do we do next based on the data? So anyway, mate, that is my hot tip. It's a bit of a rant as well, but it is a hot tip because if you can get this deep into your mind, you will become one of the best advertisers in the world because you're not just going, what's everyone else saying random shit? It's actually, what does the account data say and show? And what am I going to do with that?
Yeah.
basically.
And like you said, really important is don't skip steps. Don't just try to find the ultimate checklist and then you go through the checklist, but you don't actually analyze the data. You've got to analyze the data because a lot of the checklists are sort of like setting it up, or it's a script that outputs data. But then what are you going to do with the data? Right. So I have a lot of people that talk to me about this. Like they're like,
Yeah,
oh, you have all these scripts, but there's so much in there. I don't even know how to use it. I'm like, well, why did you even use the script in the
yeah.
first place if you don't know how to do that? Right. So
But the script, as at the end of the day, it's more data output. It's not actually analyzing the data. It's a data output. Like the analysis comes from the human mind and the insights. Like the analysis is me looking through the data, going, okay, cool, this, and this, and the insight is this. Whilst there are a lot of scripts that look at the data, and some of them have like Chat GPT prompts, the prompts are not going to be as powerful. Sorry, the outputs from those prompts are not going to be as powerful as someone who knows what they're doing, because you can't like prompt in 10 years of experience into a Chat GPT prompt.
yeah.
Like that's why expertise, at least for the short period, is like there's more than just like numbers on a screen and a script. It's the expertise from the person behind the screen, because a lot of success comes from the business intelligence, not just the data intelligence.
Mm-hmm. Yep. And before we go, bonus tip. Speaking of GPTs and all these things, for all my scripters out there, people who like to write scripts and things, and they want to use GPT for coding, get into the pro version of ChatGPT and OpenAI. Sign up for the pro version. I think in the US is $20 a month, and use that new O1 preview and O1 mini. You will be shocked at how much better it is at coding than even the 4.0. So for all my coders out there, guys, get on the train and start
Oh,
utilizing it. I hit my data limit for my, it's a weekly data limit. I hit that cap like in day one. I was using it so much just to try it out. I even did some I tried to do some bug fixes and for when I put it through 4.0 and it took 10 times, still couldn't fix the error. I put it through the O1 first try and improved the script dramatically. I was like, wow,
wow.
this is
Okay.
my new main. Yeah.
I'm just in ChatGPT now, and I have it bookmarked on in my bookmark bar with ChatGPT 4.0, whatever it
4.0.
is.
That's the
And now
last
it's
one.
like O1 dash preview and then O1 dash mini.
Yep.
Interesting.
Try it out, guys.
Interesting.
This I'm really loving it so far because it takes time to think. It's what I was alluding to it like a couple episodes ago, and it's here. So
Which
really
one do you
excited.
prefer more, the O1 or the mini?
The O1, well, it's O1 preview or O1
Yep.
mini right now. O1 preview is kind of like the full on one. They, through their documentation, say mini is a good option for coding and pseudocode and stuff like that. I really find that both are doing really well with code regardless. So I just used up
Yeah.
the preview and now I'm using the mini because I can't use the preview anymore. They cut me off. I was like, I will upgrade to enterprise, whatever it takes.
Wow, that's cool. That's cool. I hadn't
Yeah,
seen
yeah.
that. I once again, I only use ChatGPT basically for writing out formulas on Google Sheets. So like when I'm doing advanced dashboarding, I'm like, I know the logic, but then I'm like, I'm typing it out, what I know, and then the logic, and I'm just like, fix this, and then
Yeah,
it'll
yeah, yeah.
just fix it for me.
There you go. It's perfect. No,
There
it's
we go,
perfect for
man.
that. Yep.
Excellent. Okay, well, let's jump into our next segment, Corey, which is drum roll, please. It is true or false, is it? Or are we going to do something else?
Yes, let's do it. Fact or
Okay,
fiction. Let's get right
nice.
into it. I love this segment. All right. Let me pull up my Q&A here. So, Michael, I'm trying to push the machine. Speaking of which, this was written by the 4.0, mind you, not the
Okay.
full-on preview mini. I'm curious. I didn't have any tokens left, so I couldn't use
Do you
those.
want me to
But
do it right now? Let me put in a prompt. Let's do,
oh,
or do you want
please,
like,
let's do
what's
that.
a
Let's
good
do that.
prompt? What's a good prompt right
Let's
now?
see. Where are we here?
Give me true or false
Give
questions.
me very challenging. Let's see. Let's see. Let me find some good one. Give me very challenging fact or fictions I can use for Google Ads podcast. Let's go. Let's go with that. I want to see what it thinks advanced is or challenging is. Because we don't want to be like, does quality score matter? And just we've talked
Okay,
about it in the past, but we want something a little tougher. We want a debate here.
here we go. Give me very challenging fact or fictions I can use on a Google Ads for a Google Ads podcast. Ooh, here we go.
Is this the preview, or is this the mini, or is this the full? I'm
This is
curious.
preview.
Oh, cool. Okay. All
Preview.
right. I'm
Okay, O1.
interested.
So, okay. Oh, this is actually not that advanced.
Okay. Tell
Increasing
it to
your
get more
bid,
advanced. Just
get
push that
more
thing. Push that thing.
advanced.
Say not good enough.
Yeah, this is just basically like a Google documentation sheet being like, the display network reaches over 90% of the internet users worldwide.
No.
Increasing your bid guarantees your top position on Google. Yeah, this is, mate, this is clown. Mate, is this clown college here? This is ridiculous. Okay. Jeez. Here we go. Using the Google Ads API, advertisers can programmatically adjust bids based on real-time stock levels.
Oh boy. Okay. So we want to start with that one. Is there
Mate,
some
I
other
just
good
feel like
ones?
my brain broke. So anyway, I'll read through a few of them. We can talk about
Yeah.
it. In Google Ads, you can custom create audiences based on users' app usage data.
Well, I don't really
Advertise,
mess with a lot. Go ahead.
advertisers can target ads to users based on specific Wi-Fi networks they are connected to.
Wi-Fi networks.
Yeah.
Wouldn't that be
Google Ads.
nice? I guess Google Analytics used to have these old. Um, anyway, I used to identify colleges with
Yeah. Oh,
this little
really?
thing, and yeah, because I would go off of the emails in the customer list, so like the dot edus, and then there was
Oh,
also a
wow.
way to
Then you look
go
up their
off.
IP address back in, because if they're putting that, if the UTM strings in analytics, which it would, because if you didn't mask it with PII, personally identified information, if you didn't have a script, you could just go, here are all the URLs that contain .edu, and just get a column
Hmm.
that has IP address. Nice.
Yep.
See how like I already know these probably can just like we just we do. Um, Google
All
Ads
right.
allows for bid adjustment. Okay, look, Corey, I want you to ask your one, mate.
You're good. I got a bunch
This
of
is
them.
getting
We're
too
good.
chaotic.
We already lost everybody. Okay, fact or fiction. Okay, Google Ads machine learning algorithms can be gamed by feeding them false conversion data to prioritize certain campaign behaviors. Fact or fiction? So, can the algorithms in Google Ads be gamed by feeding them false conversion data? Michael,
I
fact or
think you
fiction?
can if you're uploading like offline data, like into like
Okay.
a just like an offline data, and then just make that the priority campaign, like if
Okay.
using random email addresses, but it would need to match it
Hmm.
unless you
So
just have like some. Yeah, sorry, you go. I haven't done this before. That's the thing. I'm not
it's all good.
unethical towards
I
doing it.
I have tried. I have tried several times because I feel like part of our job is just to break things and see what happens. So I did try this for some very ambitious advertisers who had huge budgets, and they're just like, let's try everything because we've been on the same path for too long. So we tried this, and an example is to, if we're getting low conversion volume for purchases, we could do initiate checkouts. That's not enough. We tried just saying
Yep.
add to carts, and we give it a value, whatever we assume a purchase is going to be. Here's what I find is the biggest downside with that is that Google will adjust to what you're doing over time. And so you might get a short-term anomaly in terms of it getting more aggressive with your bidding or whatever, but you're also telling Google that the people that are initiating checkout are people that are actually purchasing, so it's going to try to find more people that maybe start that initiate checkout but don't
Yep.
actually purchase. And
Yep.
sometimes you would think they're always connected, but they're not. There's going to be, in a lot of cases, a lot more people who are just shopping around as opposed to people who are buying. And so I think what you end up getting is maybe at best a short term gain, but then over time it adjusts to that anomaly and it starts reducing the weight
Yeah.
of that sort of inconsistent data. So it's not going to get you long term performance that you're
Yeah.
looking for. And in some cases, kind of just a waste of budget. So,
Mate, yeah, that makes complete sense. I've actually got a few clients that are doing that, not like they're measuring it. And the reality is, let's just say your account for e-commerce is killing it, and you've got a 5% conversion rate. If only 5% of people converting at the end, every stage you go up, you're only assuming that a certain percentage, 5% of that, or even smaller, are going to convert. Uh, But that means more, like, let's just say 95% of people are not going to convert, which
Right.
means that you're telling Google, look for more of the 95%, because
Exactly.
statistically there's 19 times more of those people than purchases. So that's the thing. If whilst we do want bigger data sizes, if you give it something that's earlier on, whilst it is a bigger data size, the quality is significantly less.
Yeah.
And 19, let's just put in this time, 19 times more people are likely to not convert than convert. So Google's going to be like, well, let's optimize towards more likely to optimize towards that. So
Exactly.
common sense here, guys. Like, this is the thing. It's like, yes, experiment, yes, try things out. But the thing is, the algorithms learn over time as well. So then
Hmm.
you are conditioning and training it to look for the 19 times of like the 95% who are not going to buy, which
Yeah.
is not who you want to advertise towards.
Also, if you're not careful in your data analysis when you're looking at historical data and you're not taking into account that conversions, if you're just looking at it through that lens of conversions or conversion value during these years or these months in a given year, were actually counted for checkouts or something like that, but like not completed checkouts, but maybe add to carts, and you're not
Yep.
factoring that in, and you run a seasonality analysis that includes that, you're going to be including all these sort of false indicators into
Yeah.
the algorithms that you're building, and those models are going to be really inaccurate. So you just got to be really careful about, if you're going to use that, understand what you're using it for, and understand it's probably just going to be for a short-term gain. And I've heard of advertisers trying to do this like every other month, where they just try to like do it again, like kickstart the algorithm, just
Yeah.
feed it a bunch of add to carts. And I'm like, guys, this is not like a long-term solution, and there's no guarantees that's really going to work any better than just
Yeah.
optimizing the funnel, just like you would normally do. Yeah.
It's even after that last segment we just did there, it's like the things people do just to avoid the simplicity, the thing that would just actually work, which is, hey, just optimize the ad account and hey, optimize the website. Like when you're trying to do these hacky things, it's just like you don't get it. Like you're obviously not hitting the fundamentals properly. And if there is a significant gap, analyze it. Like you're not going to just like it's not the algorithm. It's something in your business. It's the flow. It's the structure. It could be the pricing. It could just be that, hey, people, yeah, they don't buy. So what do we got to do to make them want to buy? Do we need to put them in an email list? Like start think strategically, not so like so linear thinking. Like what do we do to hack the ad account?
Right.
It just
Yeah.
it can yeah. I More businesses would have way more success if they just came back to the fundamentals. But you did preface to say that they'd been doing the same thing for a long time and they did want to change things up, which is so
Yeah.
important as well. It is, you need to
Absolutely.
experiment, but do the fundamentals before the experimentation.
Exactly. And I will say in that case, the one that I'm thinking of, I did it a few times about a year or two, a couple of years ago now. I did it a couple of times, but that one in particular, because it was a really large account. Um, if people are curious how that experiment went, I'd say generally speaking, we had a really tough time recovering, let's say, algorithmically from that test. And I'm not saying it's going to happen for all accounts, but when we tried that for, I think it was like a month and a half, we gave it during a normal, moderate time of seasonal effect on sales throughout the year. We really had, it was a few months of trying to get things back to where they were when
Oh,
we switched back to like the full on purchase. So, you understand the risks that are potentially involved. Again, it may not happen for you, but understand that you could be kind of throwing yourself for a loop here. When you try things like that. So it's
yeah.
an aggressive tactic, and I wouldn't recommend it for most. Let's just say,
Yeah. It's funny
use
how
with
people just
caution.
think that like they can test something like that and it's like, oh, if it doesn't work, we just go back to where we were. It's like, no, that's not how this
I
stuff
wish.
works.
Yeah. Yep. But then also that causes people to be overly cautious too, right, Michael? Like where
Yeah.
they're like, "Well, I don't want to interrupt the algorithm," and it's like, guys, like it's not usually that touchy. Now there are certain industries, let's say insurance or healthcare related products, where it does tend to be like it feels like more fragile, where you don't want to be jacking up the different levels of target return ad spend in an ad group or something like that, because you
Yeah.
can find it really has trouble recovering. But I think in most industries, don't be afraid to like break the algorithm. Like I think
Yeah.
people really misunderstand how this stuff works, but just be
Yeah.
cautious. Just don't be overly cautious. Find a nice happy medium. I know
Yeah.
that's tough to explain for people, but I think with experience you'll figure that out, where those benchmarks are for the account. Anyway, moving into the next one. That was a good one so far. Michael,
Nice.
do you have any? You want me to keep going?
No, I reckon No, I don't have any more. Let's keep going.
Okay. Okay. Your bid strategy, fact or fiction, your bid strategy can influence the auction outcomes of other advertisers bidding on the same keywords.
Um, yeah, well, it would influence it
Okay.
because
All right.
yeah, if you're bidding, like it's an auction at the end of the day, and there's a lot of factors. But if you bid too low, you won't show. If you bid too high, you'll show, which means that other advertisers would be pushed up or down. And
Yeah.
I think it's just for me. That's my simple answer.
Yeah, absolutely. I
Too
mean, if
simple?
you're
Too
no, I
simple?
think that's just simple enough. Yeah, that is the sweet middle there. Yeah, that's
Just
good.
right.
Yeah, that's right. So yeah, I would say, in my opinion, Michael's opinion, I think that's fact. Obviously, the Google Ads auction is dynamic, as they like to say. If you're aggressively
Mm,
pushing your bids up, it is going to, in some cases, impact the cost per clicks of your competitors because you're telling Google, I'm willing to bid a little bit more for every click. Obviously, quality score, ad rank is all going to play a factor in here, particularly for smaller markets, if you will. Those auctions can be even more fragile to
yeah,
more receptive, or what do you want to call it, to those major increases or decreases. This is why it's also important. I think a lot of people just forget to use the auction insight reports to kind of
yeah,
monitor what's going on. I mean, it's such a big factor in your data of
yeah,
what is happening inside these auctions. You are constantly competing with a bunch of other advertisers. What's happening there? I feel like the auction insight reports and the metrics around them are a little bit confusing to a lot of advertisers. Has been my experience. They're not really sure how to use it. How do we visualize trends over time? I think a lot of people struggle with analyzing that data, but if you can, it gives you an insight into like, wow, these guys are really starting to get more aggressive over time. Maybe we
yeah.
need to fight back with more aggressive bids and see what happens, et cetera, et cetera. But yeah, I would definitely say that's a fact
I
there.
I love the auction insight report. I look at it as much as I can. I look at it with clients as well because it's a really good visual representation of like whilst you can show data, some clients get it, sometimes clients don't get other data points, but we need to show them, hey, here are all your competitors, and they know who their competitors are. And then you
Mhm.
show them some of the other the data points like impression share or like out like I'm even forgetting them right now, but like all the data points, they're just like, oh wow. Like they get it. And it's because if you just look too much in the data in the ad account with a client, sometimes it's kind of like very like, oh, it's not good because maybe you haven't done a good job. But when you go to the auction insight, that has nothing to do with you. It's purely just like a market. It shows that there's a market force here. And it's probably one of the only data points or reports that show market forces apart from impression share. And that's why I love it. And I look at
Yep.
it, most of the clients I'll look at like, oh, how are we going this month versus last month, maybe same time last year as well. So we could see
Mhm.
the variance. And it's really interesting when year on year you see more competitors come in. You're like, look, this is why your cost per clicks are going up. Like,
Yep.
this is why the conversion rates are getting lower. Let's have a look at these competitors' landing pages. So you copy their website, maybe run it to see if they're running ads to a landing page or just the website. And that way you can actually do competitor analysis as well. Like,
Yep.
I love it. I really
Yep.
love. I think it's one of the most underutilized and best reports in Google Ads.
Absolutely, it's you're bringing up a good point. It's one of the things I like about it too is to go, hey, did you guys know about this new competitor in their field? And they're like, I don't know, who is that? And I
Yeah,
hear them on the reporting call looking it up, and oh wow, they have really interesting. Oh, I didn't know they had this product that we just launched. Oh, that's interesting.
yeah,
And then again, it's some market research that you're doing sort of in real time with the reporting. That's you could pay these market research agencies a bunch of money to try to figure that out, but you're usually going to do that periodically if
yeah,
ever. Most companies don't even invest in that, which is sad in my opinion. But yeah, it's a market research tool inside of your Google Ads account. So don't underutilize that. It's really important. Yep.
yeah. And
Okay.
it's really powerful just to see what is going on in the market because a lot
Absolutely.
of the time, and especially on brand, like a lot of people, like you've got to
Hmm.
go, like these people are going after your brand.
Yeah.
Like we've got exact match keywords on your brand. They're showing next to it. You've got to be aware of that. And sometimes they're
Yep.
like, why should we bid on our brand? It's like, this is why. Because if you don't, these clowns do.
Yeah, that's right. Exactly. I'll give you guys a little bonus tip because we're coming up on Black Friday, Cyber Monday time in Q4, the holiday season. So aside from just using your historical data and trying to see when new CPCs start going up for given products or whatever, or across the account as a whole, branded, non-branded, etc., or shopping, instead of just using historical data, saying okay, around end of October, maybe the last week of October is usually when we see cost per clicks go up for these keywords, whatever. Also utilize the auction insight reports so you can see more real time, like, man, everybody's starting to go a little earlier this year in terms of getting more
Yeah,
aggressive. We need to jump on that same thing. We need to make sure we're still competing. Instead of just relying on historical data, definitely look at those auction insight reports when you get closer to those holiday seasons to make sure that you're not behind. Now, obviously, the algorithms will take some of that into account, but if you've had a very stable target return ad spend, for example, for a campaign, you can't just expect that it's going to see what's happening in the auction insights and then be able to get as aggressive as you might like
yeah,
because everyone else is getting aggressive. You might have to change that target return ad spend to adapt to push
yeah,
it in that direction, especially if it feels like it's barely able to hit that number. It's probably not going to itself just go, okay, let's get more aggressive because
mm,
it's taking your goal into account more than any other factor. So you've got to still get in there and be proactive and figure out what's going on in the auctions. Yep.
excellent, awesome.
All right. Shall we move into the rant session, one of our favorite sessions?
Yeah, let's do the rant, mate. Let's do the
Okay.
rant.
All right. So for today's rant, Michael and I were talking, and we get this all the time, right, Michael? This is a very common thing. So we get asked, and often I get asked this also by clients where I'm managing their accounts, and I totally understand where they're coming from. But they ask, what is working for your other accounts right now? What's best? Do you usually see PMAX working? Are people moving away from PMAX? They want these sort of black and white answers and these sort of all-encompassing North Star answers to say, should we just abandon this campaign type? Or, I'm hearing a lot about demand gen. Are you seeing that with all of your clients or most of your clients like us, that demand gen is a
Mm,
good investment for them? You can imagine, Michael, it's we understand the logic behind the question. You want to stay competitive. You appreciate our insight and know that we're working with similar or other accounts, and you want to make sure that you're ahead of the curve. But Michael, what would you say immediately in your mind is the problem with a question like that?
well, I'll even just say before, like, I think it's a valid question to ask because
Yep.
the challenge a lot of people have, even when they've got a lot of understanding about advertising and they're working either in house or running the account, they've been running it themselves, is their only data point, like main data point, is that business. So they don't know, is it going well because I'm amazing? Is it going well just because the industry? Is it going well for no reason? Is it going poorly because of me? Is it going poorly because of the industry? Is it going poorly because Google Ads isn't the right channel? So they don't know. So they're trying to like get pinpoints to go like, what are other people doing? Because you and I, we work with about 30 clients. You work with the amount of clients you work with. And even that, and there's agencies who work with hundreds of clients. Like there are more data points to kind of see a pattern that flows through, not only in the client's industry, but just like in e-commerce or lead generation in general. So I think it's like just from a place of actually perspective, it's probably better that they ask us that than just come up with their own assumptions.
Yeah.
The problem is every business is different. And what, as we are saying in that the section about like the hot tip is, you've got to really come back to your own data. You can't just go like, oh, what's the ultimate strategy for e-commerce right now? Like it's not like that. That's like what marketers say, like really bad agencies. Like we've got this process that like makes every client like scale their ROAS by 3 and increase their revenue by 2 in 3 months, like type of thing. It's really, I get where it's coming from, but sometimes it's dangerous because it's trying to get like, okay, well, if they're doing it, let's us just do that. Just thinking it's like a something you just can turn on and off, and then things are going to grow. It really comes down to the expertise of the specialists working on the account and them having picking up patterns in other campaigns, going, hey, we should apply this rather than going, what's everyone else doing?
Right. Yep. Yeah, I feel like it's a gateway drug question. I don't know if this applies internationally, if that makes sense. It's like we usually say, certain things are gateways to something else, and I feel
Yeah.
like that question is kind of a gateway drug where we start saying, we're looking for these very simple answers to complex problems, right? Where we go, yeah, actually, for most of my accounts, and this for me, sometimes I'll say, let's say it's standard shopping. Are you seeing that? for your e-commerce clients that standard shopping is the way to go. And even if that's the case, I would really hesitate to go, yeah, man, definitely. So we should just do that too because it's working for all of them. No, no, no. I'm going to use the data I have for you guys
Yeah.
to inform my strategies, and that's going to inform our decision making. So yeah, just because it works for most doesn't mean it's going to work for you. I think that's really important. This is true of
Mm.
diet. This is true of exercise. This is true of relationships. Just because most people are able to get something to work one way does not mean that it applies to you. Is it good to know those things? Sure. But know
Yeah.
that in asking that question, it's kind of like this. If you have a sophisticated advertiser like Michael or I, we're going to hesitate to answer that with just this simple. We're going to go, yeah, we are, seeing that PMAX is working when it's feed only as opposed to a full bill. It tends to work better from an efficiency standpoint, whatever. But with you guys, what we have seen is XYZ. Feed
Yeah.
only does really well with these products. For these other guys, we've got to control the bids at the ad group level for these certain product categories. So for that reason, we have found through careful testing, they need to be in standard shopping. So again, yeah, that general advice might apply to some of your products, maybe not all of them. So it's nuanced. Again, we understand why the question is there, and it's a valid question, but don't be surprised if your expert that you're asking this question to doesn't come back with maybe a more nuanced or carefully answered way of
Yeah.
positioning, answering that question.
Every business is different and the data you have is different. And once again, you can't just get like, what's the checklist? What are other people doing? And it's good to know that. And I've had that as well. Big clients being like, hey, this other agency had a quick look, like they're friends of ours, and they mentioned this thing, you should do this. I'm like, bro, if you did that, this would be the direct consequence. And like, oh, okay. I'm like, what, like, I get what this person's saying. They're like, oh, just saying stuff. It's like, but they don't know your data and business and the consequence. And as soon as I said, like, if we did that, yes, we could, it sounds good, but the consequences, it's like, oh, it's like really important to really understand consequences towards recommendations and strategy. You can't just go, let's try it out. There'll always be a consequence, positive or negative.
Yeah. And sometimes I'm kind of surprised or shocked that they're asking me this because I try not to take it personal, like, oh, they don't trust that if it was going to be working well, that I wouldn't have tried it. It's
Yeah.
just, I think that it's a typical marketer trying to stay on the razor's edge of innovation, and they would rather ask and take the risk of saying like, oh, you already thought of that. We just want to make sure, as opposed to not saying it. And then maybe you hadn't heard of that or something like that. So I think it's well intentioned. I'm not saying it's bad to ask these questions, but again, just I think you should have the expectation that it's going to be a nuanced answer, and it should
Yeah.
be a well thought out answer. It shouldn't just be, yeah, we should. You're right. I didn't even think about that. We should just be doing feed only. You don't want that response from your advertiser, right? That's probably not a good sign.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think it's well intentioned. And as an advertiser, try not to take it personally. I don't think it means that the client doesn't trust your opinions or that you haven't thought about it. I think they're just trying to do what they do best, which is to stay on the razor's edge and make sure that we're always pushing.
Awesome. Well, mate,
Yeah.
I reckon we're hitting our time now. So
Yes,
let's
sir.
wrap up.
All right. So, Michael, where can people find EU, sir?
They can find me on LinkedIn, Corey Lindholm, or adsbycorey.com, or you can also find me on the PPC Unfiltered podcast on YouTube and Spotify. And Corey, how can people find you?
Marketlead.com.au. That is our agency website. I'm also on LinkedIn, YouTube, Spotify, and YouTube for the PPC Unfiltered podcast. And
Wonderful.
thank you, everybody, for supporting the channel. We're growing steadily, a little bit at a time. Please, react, engage with the content. Let us know what your questions are in the comments section. Like, subscribe, share it with the world if you like what we're giving out.
Excellent. Have a wonderful week, everyone.
All right. Thank you, guys.